After multiple delays and a ton of hype, Drake has finally released his 8th studio album, For All the Dogs, and after telling fans that this album was gonna resurrect the old Drake that everybody misses, the question is, did Drake deliver on this promise? With 23 tracks that run for an hour and 25 minutes, this is already on the lengthy side of most albums these days, and between the long running time and the fact that Drake made everybody wake up early in the morning to hear this thing, is it worth the hype? Now, before we can answer this question, we need to look at the direction Drake took this album in. In a saga of records this decade that has featured a more immature and volatile Drake, despite the fact that Drake is advancing in age, he continues to push the envelope for how ridiculous a 36-year-old man can sound on a song, but what should we really expect from an album that's acronyms are Fat D? When you hear Drake say a line like this, or this, it establishes a tone that nothing on this album will be taken seriously, and while he tries to sell this as part of For All the Dogs' charm, it ends up feeling just weird. While Drake isn't as petty as he was on CLB or as toxic as he was on Her Loss, he blends these two aspects together to create a performance that does have its fair share of wit, but the combination of these styles leaves a lot of questions on what's going through Drake's head half the time. The way Drake raps on a lot of this album borders on parody due to how comical and ridiculous the stuff he is saying, so even when the vibes are great and the production is memorizing, these weird lyrics and moments take you out of the experience time and time again. The tonal whiplash you get from Drake simultaneously trying to be serious and corny is just beyond bizarre at this point, and with this level of care coming from the biggest rapper in the world, it makes you question what type of precedent is this setting for the genre at large. What once felt like a small quirk of Certified Lover Boy and what ended up being the selling point for a lot of people on Her Loss has now morphed Drake into a version of himself that can't take anything seriously, and this dampers on a lot of this record's potential. There are tracks that have amazing foundations like Fear of the Heights and Daylight and could have been some truly amazing tracks, but they're held down from their full ceiling because of how atrocious lines like these are. When you have entire tracks like Rich Baby Daddy with Sexy Red and SZA that feel like they are entirely dedicated to trolling the listener, it's just a strange way to flesh out and build a record. Now, while Drake's trolling gets excessive, there are a lot of other aspects packed into this album that are a lot easier to appreciate. When it comes to capturing the spirit and essence of older Drake music, the intro track Virginia Beach is about as good as it gets between its Frank Ocean sample, regal production, and Drake's captivating performance. This momentum is built on very early in the album with Amen, which features a beautiful performance from the one and only Tizo Touchdown. Now, speaking of features, a lot of guest appearances are top tier on this thing, from Lil Yachty and Yeat to 21 Savage and SZA, and when it comes to standout features, J. Cole absolutely stole the show on the track First Person Shooter. With Drake and J. Cole teaming up for the first time in a decade, this track had so much momentum going into it, and it definitely delivered. Hearing these two figureheads of modern hip-hop delivering such inspired and passionate performances over the same beat was a surreal moment, but with this said, the second half of this track felt super detached from the rest, as there is no J. Cole in this section, and it just feels like Drake is doing his best impression to mimic the second half of him and Travis Scott's Meltdown. While a lot of these collaborations were great, as For All the Dogs progressed and different guests showed up later and later, I questioned how some of these tracks made it to the final cut of the album. For the first ever collab between Drake and Chief Keef, All the Parties was super disappointing on all fronts, with Chief Keef having about 10 seconds of vocals and then dipping, and Gently with Bad Bunny is ruined not because of Bad Bunny, but due to Drake, who butchers all of the track's momentum with maybe the worst intro to a song that I have ever heard. He uses this cringe accent that is so uncomfortable to sit through, and while the rest of the track is pretty catchy beyond this, it is still stained by this horrendous opening. Now, as songs with features like these felt like they were haphazardly made, and the performances even felt a little phoned in, I noticed one vital mistake that Drake made on this entire album. As you listen to Fat D, going through track to track, you will realize one crucial flaw about the album, with this being that the structure of For All the Dogs is just an absolute mess, and let me break this down. As you advance through the track list of For All the Dogs, you're gonna realize that the later in the album you get, the less sense anything makes. All things considered, the beginning of the project starts off decently strong, painting the record with an odd but tame intensity that made things thrilling and even a little bit unpredictable, but before you can even get halfway through the project, it loses all semblance of cohesion. You can't tell me there is one artistically motivated reason why you would place 8 AM in Charlotte, which is an amazing track, easily the best on the album, with its grim performance from Drake and hypnotizing conductor Williams' beat right in between a set of tracks where Drake is singing about partying and his love for BBLs. This type of pacing and sequencing will really have you wondering if you press the shuffle button, and I know a lot of people are going to defend this album being all over the place by saying it's just well-rounded and versatile, but this is just wrong. What makes an album versatile is not the smorgasbord of sounds it has on it, but how it builds and connects moments that sound completely different under one unified vision. If you want to see a recent album that just pulled this off, look at Travis Scott's Utopia. There are so many styles and sonic cloths Travis cut from to build the musical world of his latest album, yet going from track to track, listening to the record start to finish makes for a super compelling and most importantly complete experience. Comparing this to For All the Dogs, it really just feels like Drake closed his eyes and threw darts at a wall to make this track list. There is no other way around it. Outside of those few spots in the beginning, For All the Dogs fails to culminate into any sort of vision, and this is what makes it feel so meaningless as a whole. While the flow of the track list is one major issue, certain albums like Kanye West Donda can get away with having terrible structure because individual moments are so strong, but For All the Dogs does not have that luxury. While there are some great tracks like Virginia Beach, Slime You Out, and 8 AM in Charlotte, these moments are so scattered within mostly forgettable and bland material. Drake's performances, especially ones in the middle portion of this album, make for some of the most lifeless music that he has ever released in his entire career, and it's a shame because just like we have seen with some other of his recent albums, he shows flashes of greatness but never puts in the effort to make something truly great. He's more concerned with making music for algorithms and clicks than making a genuine project that will compare to his older classics, so when Drake promised us that For All the Dogs would bring back the old Drake, that was a blatant lie. He didn't even try one bit to recapture what made his older albums so legendary. So overall, to answer the question, is For All the Dogs worth the hype? The answer is an astounding no. This album is just as disposable as most other recent Drake albums, and yeah, will do great numbers and be on top of the charts, but it's not going to stand the test of time. If I had to rate this album on day one, I'd give it a 4.5 out of 10. Now, with my initial reactions of For All the Dogs out of the way, go to the comments right now and let me know what you think of the album. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. It is free and it helps me out a ton. Mr. F, Fantastic Hip Hop, signing out. Catch you in the next video.